I don't want to come across as a fun sponge to kick off with, but I thought I'd start with some challenges, and then hopefully the mood will lighten after that. So kind of first question for the panel. I'd like to get your insights into what the current challenges are regarding inconsistencies and fragmentation of global horse racing data. So as you're nearest me, Frank Carlos, do you want to start on that one?
Yes, hello. Good morning. I do have an asset. I'm 25 years in the UK. Course director of El Turf, for the people that might not know. And we hold the only centralized database for horse racing from Latin America, so from Mexico down. And company started about 25 years ago. Fragmentation or data is something that actually where we operate is quite relevant over this period of time, 25 years. There are about 19 tracks that we have in our database. They are in 10 different countries, and every racetrack is owned independently almost. So the racetracks, some of them don't have a proper IT department, or they do their own thing, or they don't do it. So we have done the work of over the years on developing systems to standardize and have all of that data into one central database. And what we are also doing as well is that we don't only have the racing data, so we do pre-race data and results. And that also we do all of the breeding, so we have a lot of customers that are breeding farms. So our database combine those two worlds. I think as well when we talk about fragmentation, combining that two set pieces of data into one database is something that is relevant. That's what I think. I think I'll pass it for the next one. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm Casey, TXODDS. So what we've done with our all sport products is basically integrated nearly everyone's API. So it's kind of a clear case whereby, the SIS done with Podium, I think there's 2 APIs, Racing Post, we've done 3 APIs, we've done Equibase, we're now doing the new 1ST APIs, and that's us, we're a tech company, so that Aspen Bookmaker alone is huge. You can integrate, all these different sources, and now, some people get passed through to get them all through one source, but then, it just brings up this different stuff, like, even just what time is the race start? Is it UTC? Is it local time? And there's all these different, like the form is different, is there stills, what time does odds come through? And at the minute we're doing it for, Greek customer, Novibet, they're just expecting everything to look the same. So they think their UK data should look like their South American data. They're wondering, how come this isn't there? Down to they want the weather off me, and I'm like, it's the ground you want in horse racing, not the weather. But they're like, no, it's on our website, so we need to get it. And you're finding these are the kind of things you're dealing with, and it's like, but it's not obvious to them. And we try to hold their hand and bring them on the journey, but it's not easy. And I know it's someone gets a new rights or a new country, and then you add it. Okay, which state it needs to be added to? So I guess everyone wants to be legacy free, but there's best intentions to be legacy free, but because it's just you're building it, you want to get a product out quick. So it's a hard one to fix. It's like it's probably a day like today where you talk about, okay, not we're going to start from scratch, but if we did, what are the key data points? Could we all come together and say, right, these are data points that customers are going to want? Can we focus on getting these ones right and standardised? Might make it a bit easier for people to kind of understand, digest, and then in turn get to their customers.
So Freya Hammer, currently working in the horse race in Ireland. So we kind of go over to the 26 race courses within Ireland. That's a bit different to obviously the UK system in terms of the regulatory space. But even within those 26 race courses, we have challenges with fixtures and everything else that I've learned over the last year and a half. I was previously with the bookmakers as well, so some experience there. Just in terms of the question, look, even within horse race Ireland, I struggle to sometimes get accurate data as well. So even I request some of the off times for Podium and everything else to get accurate race start times and finish times for UK race courses in terms of fixture list optimization and everything like that. So even, I suppose, people that should have the most up-to-date data and stuff within a reasonably good jurisdiction in UK and Ireland also has its challenges already. I suppose we're with our data, we're very production database, so we're moving into a more analytical space, hopefully. But even we have our clear challenges there. There's definite like in terms of the customer from a bookmaker point of view, it does always look poor when a product looks different. Even for the Irish tracks, I know trying to get, if there is an in-running product, this is what we're trying to push now at the moment. Within shops and online for all bookmakers, and even that is difficult. It just makes the Irish product look very different to what a customer is used to within a UK and Irish space. So it makes it look like a different jurisdiction. So yeah, there's plenty of challenges around really.
Thanks, Paul Witten, SIS. It's good being last on panel because all the previous entities couldn't post this. I'm going to confess to not being a data interoperability expert.
It's too late to find that now.
But I'm looking at the audience and there's plenty of people here who understand data and how it works and whatever else. So as interactive as possible, please, rather than trying to listen to pearls of wisdom because you're not going to get it from me. I think I agree with you on the number of APIs or integration paths a tax supplier has to integrate to get consistency is ridiculous. And the individual bookmaker who's choosing to do that is really going to struggle to get it through a qualifier. If you're in a registering jurisdiction where registering is a legacy betting sport like UK, like Ireland, there's more motivation for people to do it. When you talk about places like Novibet in Greece and Central European secondary markets where racing is not a core sport, that's not where people grow up, it becomes much more challenging. And the expectation of those customers is, I'm buying it from you, why doesn't it just work in the same way as everybody else? If I take football, I get football, and I get all the same market types, I get all the same timing, comes down in the same format. If I get it from Radar or Genius, it all looks the same. So I can map it to my Steam, put it on the website, put it as shelves, and it just works. And racing is much more complex. You touched on BST or UTC or local time or whatever, meters or furlongs. Trying to load furlongs to somebody who's in Romania, it just doesn't work. That level of inconsistency, I think, is one of the biggest challenges we as an industry have. We attempted, I won't say we succeeded yet, but we've attempted to try and make all of the content that we supply to bookmakers have the same base level of presentation capability. So if we use the UK as the gold standard and you go to one of the UK websites and look at how it's presented and what level of data is there, there's enough to motivate a customer to want to have a bet. Fast forward, decent odds that have a runner, all the kind of stuff that you expect, past video, past performances, all that kind of stuff. A lot of international content on the UK-based websites has maybe 20%, 30%, 40% of that level of content. If you're a casual punter and you want to go to the next race, there's very little there to motivate you to have a bet. You don't have trainers, you don't have the horses on international content. We're trying to upgrade that so that there's at least a base level where everything that we supply has a consistent level of, even if it's just the equivalent of racing post spotlight level 1, 2, 3, something isn't true now. Otherwise, we're buying content in the market, in a competitive market space, and trying to maximise the value of it. I think data and how that is put together is one of the keys to making it work.
Thanks all. Probably really lead on to the next question about kind of standardisation, which you touched on there, Paul, in terms of what is the scope for standardised data formats and exchange protocols other lessons we can learn from other sports or other industries in this area, whether it's kind of finance. You touched on football, for example, there, or maybe back to one cars at this end, particularly about South American experience in that area.
Thank you very much. Well, South America is a little bit of a world kind of distance from the UK. You don't get to see it much. We are a small company, and when we have data feed, the international companies, the clients or partners, we usually accommodate to the data feed that they have. So for us, it will take us about a month to get that up and running. If it's a breeding client that we're breeding, will take a few more fields that we don't have in the racing feeds that we have. So we kind of accommodate that. And it's been very stable. I don't have much feedback on that in that sense, because we are not faced with multiple integrations international like you have for the government.
Yeah, and I think that's like we mentioned there. When you have football, you get football where it's going racing. You have to add all these different parts, and pay all these different people, and it is, and it's a lot. Like, it's a conversation that needs to be had, like Josh said with his I have dream speech, and the conversations do need to be had here. Maybe it starts today, but what do we want out of racing? Like, most people are purists, and you want to be able to have a fair bet, have a proper bet. At the minute, it's getting expensive to the point where our bookmakers now go, these turnover charges are a bit too high. We're not really pad this with margin, and it's just a casino product now, or it's just more content for bookmakers. So I think Paul mentioned, UK and Ireland we know it's great for, we love it, but the rest of the world is just content. And then, but it's just content. How come a lot of people aren't taking it? It's too hard for them to take. So it's packed it up. And I think they've started doing it. There is where now you can get all content in one place, and it's great to see. I think one racing, that stuff does just, you need to make it easier for bookmakers just to plug it in. There it is, it's content. Generate new horse racing plans, and then get the money back to rights holders, back into racing. And then, I think then if you're adding all that extra business, turn that on, then maybe it makes it a little bit cheaper then potentially for, the larger bookmakers who then could offer a more competitive racing product to customers in the main racing markets. So that's a dream I would like to see, Josh.
Thanks. Yeah. So in the international space, I know even with form and everything else, just remember there's some whirlpool examples where I suppose there's a real requirement for even more in-depth forming. We kind of say that you can now tracing it already at a pretty high standard, but even just looking at their form book for their key races, just how they break out form under different race distances or different after breaks or different things. It's very, very detailed. So that's interesting that there's maybe a higher standard to get to as well. And then there's potentially, I suppose, welfare wins and stuff like that if there is more data sharing and things like that. I know the IHRB in Ireland is working on making it easier to share, I suppose, a horse's records of health and I suppose bring more confidence to vet checks and stuff like that, and having higher chances of horses racing abroad, particularly Australia. But maybe there's some wins there as well.
Different jurisdictions do to a different level. You want to have the one that requires pump carbon pretty significant. The Australian market has great centralised data system. Ours is a bit fragmented, and it's fragmented because of rights holders. A lot of the pool data is very common. What can we learn? I think people like Houghton have consolidating and standardising, like a kid here in the States, makes real sense. But there are differences between consolidators. I think one of the challenges we're going to face is the cost of everything is going up, and the customer's wallet isn't. So there are an awful lot of mouths to feed in this space, and ultimately, if the dream is keep racing, thriving, and healthy, and ownership, what else? You want to get as much money back to the racetracks and the owners as possible, by their prize money and all the other stuff. And I think at the moment there's a bit of misalignment on where the value goes, because racing is not a growing industry at the moment, and that's a worldwide thing. You look at Hong Kong, if Hong Kong could have the World Pool, they've been down in racing for the last 2 years. In contrast, soccer's still increasing for them, and they've just announced the launch of basketball better. So what used to be a completely captive market that led the world in how data was used, both in retail and online, and then internationally, as they were co-making the World Pool. And it's a tremendous exercise, and it's growing. So the World Pool is growing, so that international co-making is growing in value. But if you take that out, and there's a limit to how far that can go, racing in Hong Kong has got some challenges. So I think you need to look at the whole value chain and try and simplify it. I'm not going to suggest that the sport data market is in any better state. If you look at the increase in rights cost to make our genius, it's been a continual upward pressure on the people who pay for it, and that is the bookmakers. Getting to the point, and I think we've all heard this many times, being impressed in the UK of if the tax rate goes up in a month's time, does bookmaking face an existential crisis? No. But could racing face a very significant challenge? Absolutely, because even if racing is carved out with the budget protected, it really doesn't matter if the tax on casino and the tax on sport goes up, because racing will still be hit by bookmakers having to increase margins and therefore making the product less attractive. So I don't be doom-monger, but we're in the shadow of that budget at the moment. And I think ultimately, without a very significant change in the way this whole system works, simplifying it, finding growth in non-core territories. So I'm not going to say the UK's maxed out, but I'd say the UK's at a peak excitement for horse racing. And you get the same level as the one where horse racing is not a core sport. That's the biggest challenge I think we face. Data's got a massive part to play in that. And then the presentation of that data in a simplified way, make it more exciting, make it more accessible to people who already bet on something else. So football season, you watched Betfield a few years ago, in-play betting before that. These are pretty old tech product ideas now. There's a lot of talk within, certainly this market, about introducing similar kinds of product innovation, and that needs consistency of data. So we all need to work together on that. It's very difficult to take away the partisan commercial requirements, but I think ultimately, for the good of the whole environment, that's possibly what needs to happen.
Thanks, Paul. I think you're making very valid points there, and I'm sure a lot of your comments around budget next month will resonate in this room. I was just going to ask a bit. I know you mentioned Hong Kong. Quite interested that as you referenced the growth of the world pool on horse racing. I believe there's a kind of move in the tote circles to actually have one kind of bet protocol. In the way at the moment, bets are commingled via various methods. That seems to be a sensible approach for me, to try and have one protocol that works globally to support commingling. And I know you referenced, for example, Equibase being a kind of good US the source of data. I was wondering what else we can do, or your thoughts of what else we can do to make racing a bit easier, whether there is any quick wins in that area.
I really don't think there are quick wins in ITSP or those protocols. But I'm not close to it, right? So let me put it that way. But over the last 10 years, those protocols have been really started to work. And it's partly because, as you said earlier, legacy technology across lots of AEWs, lots of TXODDS. Everybody's got a slightly different version of the truth, and basically ITSP is the lowest common denominator. It's what's the least we can get away with. Innovation in that space, I'm not saying a huge amount of. I think it's more about volume, actually getting more of those events into the world and to come in. That's where the growth has come from. From a race course perspective, you get a world pool race or a hold card. It's the world pool, and it's incredibly valuable, as you all know. But all the race courses around the world are fighting to get into that space. It's a very limited pool of available races. So I don't know, from a data perspective and the co-mingling side of things, I don't know what the latest is. Maybe somebody in the audience has got a better, closer view on that. Or maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know, is it a case where, you know, RaceGo, we do just come up with a standard protocol, maybe in this room, and everyone does it, even down to like race numbers, or, you know, like a race, a horse running in the Ford race in the home state, it's 357, and I'll tell people here in America, it's, you know, race 4 or race 5, and then, you know, there are the things when you are, for us in the middle, taking in data from different sources and time zones are jumping around, and you're trying to fix an issue quickly. You know, it's not straight away, okay, it's that race the person's talking about. If that was all standardised, it would make things a lot easier for us bookmakers, or whether you could kind of have that global product looking consistent with, you know, easy to offer.
And in terms of Horseracing, I think we talked about, Paul, you mentioned having a kind of minimum level of data really to support racing globally. Is that generally kind of understood, do you feel, around the world? You know, I appreciate you not going to have quite the depth of data on perhaps some more provincial racing, shall we say, than others. But you know, could steps be made to actually help the understanding of what minimum requirements are for pre-race data, the race day data, so that ultimately the end customer can be better served.
I'll give it a go. So the BHA a few weeks ago published some research, and this is a very UK-centric view of the world, but it might shed some light on it, about how to grow UK racing and what needed to happen. And they identify half a dozen personas of people that they can target. People who've been to the race course as a student, but not engaged subsequently, and a variety of others. They've all got different needs, right? At the lowest common denominator, from the simplest, consistent standard, obviously I talk to bookmakers all the time. Ryan, you're here somewhere, you talk to bookmakers all the time from a product development perspective. They want something that incentivizes the customer who finds the product to have it out. And I personally think at the lowest level, the most straightforward level, it's if I don't know the jurisdiction, so if I'm betting on something in Chile or Argentina, I don't know the horses, I can see their passport. That's an absolute minimum. What's the last 6 races? I don't know the train map. Okay, what's his current record? Can I see the horse's last run? That for me is the base. And then what's the price? I'm very much a fixed cost guy, not a tote guy, because I like the certainty of knowing that if I take a price, I'm taking a price. I think that will play through. For me, that's the base level, and I think that's pretty well understood. The challenge is not, is that data available, or that data available somewhere? It's how do you package it in a way that a bookmaker or a tech provider into a bookmaker can just deliver it. Is it race numbers? Is it race times? How do you translate those so that in the UK you get a race time, and in Australia you get a race number? if we're supplying the same content to Tackle Australia, Sportsbet, and to Bet365 and Operators over here, who does the parsing of the data to put it into a format the local consumer wants and understands? Otherwise, if you rely on the bookmakers to do it, they're not going to take the secondary content. It's just too difficult for them. They don't see the value in, or if they do, they'll just throw it up there and hope for the best. And hope, as I'm often told, is not a strategy. So I mean, the short answer to the question is there is a base level of data. Most people understand what it is within the industry. It's not standardised.
Certainly for Freya as well, I think you mentioned earlier about kind of welfare matters in relation to racing. And I wonder what your thoughts are in terms of, again, from a global perspective, whether more can be done to make sure that data is available more on a sustainability footing about racing globally. How can we move that forward so that we've got a coherent message across all racing jurisdictions about the sport and can kind of talk about it, knowledgeably and support the sport going forward.
Yeah, definitely. There was an AI conference in Ireland a few months ago, and I think a few people here were at that as well. It's really a space that, I suppose, the welfare side, where it's video tracking at sales or then race, we've Race IQ, CPD, there's different providers of everything. And I definitely think that's the direction that's going towards, but definitely within, I suppose, the IHRE from a regulation point of view, they're more working on even just sharing, even just veterinary histories and stuff like that. It's very much we're starting from a low base, I guess, and trying to build up that confidence so that it makes it easier for horses to travel and everything else. But it's a space that would be hugely interesting, and it's something I suppose we all want to work on, maybe less so from a commercial point of view, but more just it's the right thing to do. And there is a lot more data there nowadays. There's just multiple different providers. I suppose even if we were to consolidate anything together and try to pull data from it or analysis, that maybe gets more tricky. I know we're trying to do something within Race IQ, just first of all with Ryan the guys, but yeah, I think it's difficult, and we're starting on the basics, and even just the regulation there can be a blocker a lot of time. And then, but because we do have, there is the ability to limit access to certain personal information and stuff nowadays as well. So maybe it's the right time for that. I think everything is really right before all of this now. But definitely the welfare space is one everyone's really interested in. But it's just difficult.
Yeah, I think I see it becoming more and more of a necessity to be able to kind of defend racing globally, and that a solid database that people, everyone involved, can become a champion is more and more apparent. Probably one more for the panel before we go into some questions. I was slightly away from data a little bit, or data feeds. It's more about kind of regarding international collaboration around data. What is the best approach for navigating regulatory hurdles and data privacy concerns? Juan Carlos, so that we want to start off on that one.
Thank you. I think the first one is every questions. So I think that data privacy is more to do with people. I imagine that question might be more relevant when you have information about people that are placing bets. They have personal information of them, would be more of a challenge. When you send the questions, we're thinking about how to comment on this, but maybe if I deviate a little bit, I think one of the interesting things is about freedom as well. When you have I don't have much to answer into that question, but I want to go to a point I wanted to make. One of the biggest questions is that one of the things that we do with the breeding data, for example, you want to have a pedigree for one of the horses in Argentina. You have a very good source, which is Studbook of Argentina, Studbook. But that's only for Argentina. But if you want to see what happened with the last when they went to the US and when they went to Chile, you can already do that. And I think that's another collaboration. With all the billing data into one place, so you can have very full pedigrees. And in South America, we see a lot, and probably globally, that breeders don't have information, and they breed and they breeding lines, and maybe don't work and don't realize it because the data is hidden. So I see that in that place. But in regard to the question on data privacy, we don't really match track any personal data from this apart from the accounts of our users. So we have protocols for that. So we do kind of two things. We do digital services and we do printed as well. So I do believe like what it is when you go here to the restaurant, you can the restaurants. We do that for the Latin American, for the Chilean tracks every day, and we print overnight. But we do all of the digital. We also do services to race tracks where we do this. So some of them we do websites. We do that's one benefit. The second benefit that we do is we do services for breeders. We have a particular set of modularized reports to manage the breeding farms, and you can compare your wares and see if you bring this style, will improve or not. Or already in a bit of forward, you have top one, top two. With the services for the betting industry, we provide data feeds, for example, for professional gamblers, real estate data and resources. And we do data for funds. So we have an app and a website at tofu.com, and we have subscribers, and they can go back in history 20 years ago and see in place the form of red horses. So when we see the privacy data, I think we have to be careful on our use system, paying customers. It's kind of to concentrate, but el truth as per se, we don't take bettings, so we don't have that area of concern in regard to that data.
Yeah, I think great point on like the pedigree and how it's different in different countries, or even you sell a horse, and it's hard to find that horse again because the name changes and it goes running in a different country. So even just kind of have a global database, global horse ID, and then that's that horse for its career.
Because I could have a chip, if you have the scan, it's just getting that code into the database. That's not that.
I'm sorry, I don't know what was the best around data privacy. What do you mean by that?
It'll just go away. What is the best approach to navigate kind of data privacy concerns and kind of regulatory hurdles around data?
Is that like data on places it shouldn't, or?
Yes, all of that. So controlling exactly which territories it goes to, age restrictions, cross borders, all that kind of thing. Really, tight management of data, in terms of how do we do that effectively?
Yeah, I think that's very basic stuff for us. You just have an audit trail, you can see what's switched on, what's not for customers. And as I say, we've integrated, all different APIs, and we're making sure if someone's not paying SAS, then they're not getting SAS data.
You sure?
Like all these questions, all the answers here are simple, but they're not easy. We all know, the basics required. If we started from scratch, we would probably do it very well globally. But it's getting to that point, and is it, does it need to be locked in a room? Do we need to standardise commercials for a little bit between everyone, or right, so it's all the same, and we start and actually go, okay, people, it's bad times, never good times, I think hit, but is there a chance to take stock, come together, and actually plan for, have strategy rather than just a short-term tactics all the time? Things like today is maybe a start. Because simple answers, but very easy, very hard to pull off when so many different stakeholders. Exactly.
Yeah, I suppose the Irish work through SAS, so I suppose you're more versed to speak about that. But even I suppose the veterinary example of kind of sharing international records, so there would be some privacy concern. I mentioned the regulatory limitations of kind of sharing that data with Australia, particularly. So there are some areas where that's definitely challenging. I'd agree that definitely the race level metrics and stuff, like we're not talking about performance data or anything like that. Sharing that should be reasonably doable. Just all the standardization concerns that we've kind of mentioned. But I suppose there are other areas like the welfare and everything else that maybe the regulation and stuff will need to work with us.
I agree with you, that's right. It's a difficult one, this. Like, we're all, most of us anyway, licensed businesses, the GC or the equivalent. That puts a fairly strong set of requirements on us in terms of data protection. So there's a legal requirement and a licensing requirement on pretty much everybody in this room. And that's different across every jurisdiction, so you have to adopt, the right things to do. And we all do, right? This is the legitimate side of the business. And we're the ones who are struggling because of high costs and complexity and, willingness to pay all the rest of it. And there's a piracy issue out there, where people are scraping horse racing data left, right and centre and selling it or giving it away and degrading the value of it in so many different ways. Right? So there's a fee for this kind of stuff. It's expensive. It costs to collate, prepare, supply, invest in data. And it's being ripped off left, right and centre. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we face as an industry, because as our costs continue to rise, somebody has to pay for it. And if there's a free or cheap alternative, there are operators in the market space, bookmaking and otherwise, who'll take the cheapest service they can get, rather than property and licensing and whatever else. I think that's probably a bigger challenge for us.
Absolutely valid point, Paul, and I guess we probably haven't got time yet to get into what we can do about it, but again, whether it's data, space figure or streaming, etc., then that's a vital issue that needs to be tackled. So no further questions from me. I will throw it out to the audience if anyone out there would like to ask some questions at the panel. Will, how do we start?
One simple question: you get one wish to improve data interoperability. What are you wishing for?
Collaboration.
Yeah, I think that's it. If everyone comes together, just standardise everything and just make it simple.
I've been about 6-7 years in the world of racing. Before I was a mechanical engineer and was working in the gym. How we get here is another story about in engineering. When you standardize something, you create a working committee and you work for a year or two, and you come up with a document standard, the ISO. And I wonder if this is something that the industry should speak about and look for key people in different data companies that are on the slogan, try to get you to work towards a document that is standardized.
I think my Carlos has answered that perfectly. It's a great question, by the way, because it cuts out all the crap that we've been talking about. So right, what would you do? It is collaboration. It's alignment. It's easily said. It's really difficult to get people to congregate around, but that would be the answer.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Cool. Just on the inconsistencies of data that don't get highlighted, it's not even one for Alan. Would you say that racing is much worse than other sports? this regard, you know, but it's a legacy business. It's obviously quite invasive. Different matters. All the other businesses. You know, for say French cooking was the same data set,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's basically it. But it is a bit different. You know, you just set up the markets. You know, there's not more runners. There's a lot more. You know, not runners need changing. The stuff we talked about earlier on, you know, race cars looking different all around the world, whereas football is, you know, it's withdraw in. It's and there is markets on top of that, but in terms of like what you're actually seeing, how we got there, Paul probably has a bit more experience than me, and it was more history probably, but I'm guessing it is because, you know, you started off with UK and Ireland, and then all of a sudden, okay, now you're France, and then you added in, that's where you're getting the data from, and it's probably never around that moment where a whole kind of stock member, this is the standard, this is what we want the river feed, this is what we want the race car to look like across the world, and it's probably closest being piece by piece, I guess.
Sure, answer is it's the most complicated product the bookmaker could take. Before this, I spent 10 years in the bookmaking world. You play football on a pitch, which is 100 metres by 50 metres or thereabouts. You don't play sometimes on a pitch that's 280 metres long with fences in the way. Try explaining to somebody who doesn't understand racing what a Rule 4 deduction is and why they should apply it, and put the logic into their wallet system, player management system to do that. It just doesn't work. You know, the people in the centre of the European try racing. I say, we can't present a Rule 4 deduction to a customer, so we'll have to eat it. We'll have to weigh a Rule 4 deduction and pay out as we would have paid out regardless. That's a really complicated and offering consumer-friendly product. And it's fine in racing jurisdictions because we understand it, and that inconsistency is part of the charm of the sport. It really doesn't make it easy to sell it.
Okay, I think we're a good session. It sounds like there's a lot to be gleaned from kind of aggregating leagues and trying to make things easier across various, not just racing jurisdiction, but across sports as well for bookmakers. And I think there's probably some benefits, so not just around betting, but in kind of breeding and welfare. When I touched on you know, aggregated databases, etc. But the watchwords for me were collaboration and alignment, and it seems like that's the best way forward to make further progress in these areas. So thanks to all the panelists for joining us on this session. Thank you.